All right. And we are live again. Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another live stream. Welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to talk about the cryptocurrency market. We are going to talk about the equity market. We are going to continue our conversation on this bear market. Come back in 2027. Come back in 2027. Don't buy anything in 2026. Don't buy BTC in 2026. Don't buy altcoins in 2026. Come back in 2027. If you want to do if you want to do well, if you want to do well in 2026, stay away from this market. Stay away from this market. Um yeah. If you want to do well in 2026, stay away from this market. Stay away from just stay on the sideline. Good afternoon. How are you? How are you? I hope your Wednesday is going well. For some of you guys who are joining for the very first time, I do want to welcome you. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. If this is your first time, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, guys. I have about, I have about, a good 45 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes. So we should be able to cover, as much as we can. I do want to spend some time talking about, the equity market. I was looking at Coinbase, MicroStrategy, IREN, Wolf earlier today. And I was kind of thinking, does this look like a long-term bottom? And I was looking at IREN. IREN is up about 4%, but I think the top is in, and I think you're looking at a drop in the $15 range, sometimes over the next couple of months. So I do want to take some time and talk about IREN today. But most of the time, of course, I want to dedicate it to the cryptocurrency market. Guys, I'm telling you right now, man, come back in 2027. All right, come back in 2027. Early 2027, around January time, I think you buy Bitcoin in the low $40,000 range. I think you buy Bitcoin in the low $40,000 range. But anyways, though, hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's start with. I'm gonna start with the total market cap. Look, I think I've done a great job, over the last couple of months, over the last couple of weeks, talking about how bearish this market is. I think I've done a great job, giving you guys a warning. I think I've done a great job, telling you guys to stay on the sideline. Of course, it's not financial advice. You got to do your own research. But over the last couple of weeks, I was looking at the total market cap, just right around, I think like $2.98 trillion. And I was looking at this trend line, right? This is a bull market trend line right here, guys. This is a trend line that was established, back in October of 2023. October of 2023 was very crucial for this bull market, because this was the long-term bullish confirmation. October 2023 is when Solana broke above $21 and it started its run all the way up to $300. That's when Bitcoin broke above, I believe, $28,000, if not $25,000. So if you look at the total market cap, guys, October 2023 was very important in its bull market breakout. So, when you take these lows and you connect to our very first major weekly pullback, it gives you like a really nice trend line that has been respected, or that was respected throughout the bull market. After this major pullback, we had another big pullback right here. All right, bounced off the exact same trend line. We had another major pullback right here. So every time there was a pullback, what you wanted to see was a bounce off this trend line. And when this pullback was taking place and I saw this consolidation right here, I was very worried about the overall cryptocurrency market. And I actually gave you guys a heads up. This was posted January 22nd. So monthly MACD had already gave us a sell signal. You look at to the last bear market, guys. That was a major, sell signal, and we, experienced a brutal bear market. So I was looking at this. I was looking at the fact that on the weekly, instead of getting a bounce, we were actually consolidating. Something that we haven't seen, going all the way back to every single one of these retests. March of 2025, we had a retest, straight up a bounce all the way up to, $4 trillion market cap. Back in August of 2024, we had a bounce around $1.77 trillion. All right. The bounce, once again, straight up, back to new all-time highs, $3.60 trillion market cap. So here we started consolidating, and I was very worried. And I was looking at this support right here, all right? And, it became very clear to me that if we lose the trend line, it's most likely over. And of course, when you look at your monthly MACD, it was already bearish, right? Monthly MACD was already bearish, guys. You see my work, basically still here. And this is exactly what I share with you guys. And this is what I said at the time. The crypto monthly MACD is bearish. Last time we had this signal was April of 2022. And we stayed bearish until November of 2023. So you want to be careful out there, all right? Short-term pumps are just not going to last. And chat, you look at the performance of this market, since January of 2026, January 22nd, you look at the breakdown, every single one, all right, every single one of the short-term pumps or short-term recovery that we've seen in this market is just not lasting. And this is why, once again, this is why, I'm spending most of my time zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, because if you don't, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And most of these mistakes can be avoided. All right. So, I really feel like spending the majority of 2026, staying on the sideline, and actually better off, walking away from this market and coming back in 2027 is probably the right thing to do. If I'm looking at this MACD, if I'm looking at this monthly MACD, guys, my outlook is that we are going to see a continuation of this pullback all the way down to the zero line. All right. And why do I think this? Well, if you look at the last bear market, this is exactly what we did. If you look at the 2018 bear market, it's exactly what we did, guys. Right? We are looking at a MACD pullback on the monthly all the way down to the zero line. And this is going to take months. All right. If you look at these bars right here, guys, which is, if you look at these red bars right here, all right, if you count how many of them, all right, during a bear market, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, before we turn pink. That was in the last bear market. If you look back to the 2018, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually 7, because the first one was tiny, was a very tiny one. So you have 7 red histogram, or if you want to call them bars, totally up to you. So if you look at how many we have right now, we only have three, guys. And remember, each one of these is an entire month. So you are basically talking about, if we get seven like the previous bear markets, you're talking about another four, red histogram or red bars. So that's 4 months, man. When you think about 4 months, guys, you're looking at the month of June. And remember, all right, this is not the end of the bear market. All right, it is not the end of the bear market. This is not a bottom confirmation. So September of 2022, was that the end of the bear market? I don't think so. Oops, let me see. Excuse me. September 2022, that was not the end of the bear market, guys. We ended up putting in a new monthly lower low, all right, from around, $960 billion to $728 billion. If we go back to, our very last, in 2018, our very last red bar right here, was this the end of that bear market? That was in January of 2019. Let's take a look at it. All right, January 2019. Oh, this one, that was definitely the end of the bear market. But even if it's the end of the bear market, you still have at least 4 more months. If we are going to get 7 bars like the previous bear markets, and if we don't get 7, let's say we only end up with 6, you're still looking at 3 more months. 3 more months, instead of looking at the month of June, you're looking at the month of May. So there's a process to this, and you got to respect the process, and you got to be extremely patient. And remember, all right, this is not indicating that is the bull market. All right, you are going to go from red into pink. All right, you look at the past bear markets, at least the 2018 one. It took some time though, because you have these two green right here, but then you go back into red and pink. But if you start counting from here, guys, look, this is already 5 right here. And then you add on to these right here, guys, you're basically looking at 7, 9, 11, 13, 14, all right? You look at, that was in 2019, 2018. You look at the last bear market, you look at the pink ones, this is 3, this is 6, this is 8, this is 10, all right? This is 13, guys. All right, just like back here, how many did I count again? 13, 14? So this is a process right here, and this is where the uptrend kicks off. The uptrend kicks off once you start getting, these green bars right here. This is October, November 2023. Remember, October, November 2023, that is when Bitcoin, broke above $28,000. In terms of the market cap, that is when we broke into a monthly uptrend, because we broke above this monthly resistance. This is the uptrend right here, guys. Higher highs, higher lows. So what I'm saying to you guys, once again, is that there is plenty of time left in this bear market. And you want to be very patient, because we are not going anywhere. If you focus on the lower time, if I'm looking at the daily right here, we have a continuation of this downtrend. This is a very clear trend right now. Lower lows and lower highs. And this is not a bullish consolidation. I know, because I've seen people talk about how this is a bullish consolidation. Chat, I don't think this is a bullish consolidation. I think this is a bearish consolidation. Look, personally, I just don't have enough data right here to kind of analyze exactly what type of pattern that we have. But to me, this is a bearish consolidation. And I actually wanted to react to Gareth Soloway has released a new Bitcoin update, and he's predicting the BTC could potentially go back to around $85,000, $86,000. So I want to kind of react to this, because I 100% disagree. Let me see if I click right here. and I'm not here to be critical because this is technical analysis, guys. But I want to react to. I wanted to react to. I think it was a live stream. I wanted to react to. Damn, where is it? It's gotta be somewhere around here because I just watched it. I just watched a video somewhere around here. Damn, where is it? Where's the video? Can the S&P 500 blah, 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 blah. Gareth Soloway, where is your new? This one is new though. Oh my gosh. Okay, not this one. There's a new. Okay, I think this is the one right here. Yeah, there we go. This is the one right here, guys. I'm not gonna play the video because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. But Gareth Soloway is talking about, this as a bullish flag, and BTC going up to, I think he's giving. There we go. He's giving $80,000 to $85,000. Guys, I 100% disagree. So if you have time, you can check it out, the dollar analysis. But I 100% disagree. And the reason I disagree, guys, is because I don't think this is a bullish consolidation. All right. Now, Gareth Soloway is more experienced than me. He's got more experience in this market because he's been around for a very long time. But I don't believe this is a bullish consolidation. I think this is a bearish consolidation right here. And we've talked, Chad, we've talked about this. We've spent not months. We spent weeks, maybe days now, 2 weeks actually. So we spent the last 2 weeks talking about how this is a bearish consolidation. I don't see how this is bullish. And I don't think this is a bullish flag. If you look at a bullish flag looks like this. A bull flag looks like this, guys. It looks like this. There we go. It looks like this. All right, you have the pole right here. You have the bullish consolidation, and the breakout is normally to the upside. So he's looking at it on the daily time frame, and he thinks, this is a bull flag right here. Guys, I don't think this is a bullish flag. Like, I really don't believe that. Right? And the reason I don't think that is because he is looking at it from right here, from starting right here at 60,000. So this is the pole. He's looking at this as the pole, and he's looking at this as the flag. So he in his eyes, this is a flag right here. I don't think this looks like a bull flag. Absolutely not, guys. And my reason is because I'm looking at this consolidation from this breakdown. If anything, I would say we just don't have enough data. If anything, I would say this actually could potentially develop into a bear flag. So I'm looking at this from this breakdown right here. So to me, you have a breakdown from $90,000 to $60,000, and this is a bearish consolidation. And I think after this, we're gonna dump. Like, I really think this is what we are more likely to see over the next couple of weeks. I don't believe this is turning out, this is forming a bull flag. Like, I really don't believe that. All right. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Yes, guys. Now, his invalidation is below $60,000. So, he's got an invalidation. If it goes below 60,000, he's invalid. I think he's in a trade right now, because when I was watching it, I think he said, himself and, those in his trading group are already in a position. So, look, I think that is going to end in a loss. Like, I really don't see BTC back in the $80,000 range. Could we go back in the $80,000 range? Probably. But I don't see $80,000, guys. Like, I really don't see $80,000. And look, I'm happy to say you probably won't see 80,000 for the entirety of 2026. Like, I think 80,000 is over. All right. Look, that's a very big claim because we are at $66,000. So it's only a couple $1,000s away from 80,000. And if you know anything about Bitcoin, guys, the volatility is incredible. But I think if we can go back into the $80,000 range, then you start thinking about, hey, probably, $60,000 was the low of the bear market, and we could potentially start, a long-term uptrend. Because 80,000, you are talking about a Bitcoin that is back at these levels, and we're not far from breaking above, some of these resistance right here. But anyways, another reason I just don't think we go back to 80,000 is because, especially looking at $85,000, I don't think we get a Bitcoin that trades above the 50 daily moving average. Like, I really believe for the remainder of 2026. All right. Now, could we get something that looks like this, where price briefly breaks above the 50 moving average? Absolutely, yes. But do I think we stay above the 50? I don't think so. You go back to every single bear market, guys. For the remainder of the bear market, we stay below the 50 moving average. So this is the last bear market right here, guys. For most of the bear market, we traded below the 50. Yes, a couple of times, we managed to break above the 50. But again, just briefly, all right, get above, and then we go below it again. If you go back to the bear market prior to this, if you look at 2018 bear market, it's exactly the same thing. For the entire 2018 bear market, the price is comfortably below the 50 daily moving average. Every time we managed to get above, we were just never sustainable. All right. We were never in an established uptrend. So, I'm looking at the 50 daily moving average, currently around, where are we right now? 50 moving average is around $79,000. I don't think, we get above 79,000 and stay above $79,000. Like, I really don't believe that. So, anyways, look, I think this is a bearish consolidation. I do think we get a continuation of this pullback, and I'm looking at those low $50,000 range. So I, 100% disagree with this trade right here. And I think this is going to end up in a loss. But we'll see. Let's give it a couple more weeks. Let's see how this turns out. He could potentially be right. I could potentially be wrong. But the more I look at the chart of Bitcoin, it's just that, like, right now, guys, to be honest, on the daily, we just don't have enough data to actually make a trade. This is the way I'm looking at this. Like, I don't think you have enough data on the daily, to actually make a trade. If you want to get into a trade right here, I would highly suggest you have an extremely tight stop loss, just right below 65,000. I would say put your stop loss below 65. And what you are basically banking on is that, this is the low of this pullback, and we go back to around $70,000. Trading this setup on the daily, it doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe if you go down to the 1 hour, I think the 1 hour offers a little bit more. But even on the 1 hour, you can clearly see, we are in a downtrend. And chat, didn't I told you this? I live streamed, recently, and I talked about short term. I think that was this one right here, maybe. Was it this or this? It's got to be one of these two. Let me see. Probably this one right here, guys. So here I was talking about more of the bigger picture. Yeah, right here, guys. Right here. There we go. Right here. So I live streamed the other day, and I say, guys, look, I think you get a continuation of these lower highs and lower lows. And this is exactly what we are getting, right? When I during the stream, price of Bitcoin was at 68,000, right? So $68,000 right here. You look at BTC today, guys. All right, we are at 66,000. And what are you noticing? Remember, get away from price. All right, get away from what the price is and focus on, the trend of the market. Look at this right here. Since we topped, this is a low right here. This is a lower high. This is a new low. This is a lower high. This is another new low, which is a lower low. You have a lower high right here. And look at this right here, guys. So the trend is actually very clear. And in terms of, what are the targets? Guys, you're looking at back to $65,000. All right. The only way you can long this is, we got to break above 68,000. Once you break above 68,000, that increased the probabilities of going back to $70,000. To me, this is basically the way I'm looking at this. Or, you can long this. If you think we got some bullish divergency, do we have bullish divergency on right here? Yeah, potentially, but yeah, you can long this. You got the three touches right here, guys. 1, 2, 3. You can long this right here. Then the question is, where do you put your stop loss? Do you put your stop loss just right below 65,000? Do you put your stop loss right here? Remember, this is a short-term stuff. If you want to long this, like I wouldn't do it right now. Wait until this 1 hour candle is over, is closed. But if you want to long this, I think you're targeting around $70,000, and your stop loss is gotta be below 65. So this is you're going after a 5% move. Your risk is about 1%. This is a really good trade. All right, basically, you're risking $1 to make 5. That's a really, really good, risk ratio. But if I'm looking at this and I'm interested in the trend of the market, all I see is lower highs and lower lows. I don't want to long this. Maybe you wait for a true bottom and then you look for, you're looking for longing, you're looking for, opportunities to go long. But yeah, look, there's nothing bullish about this, man. Like there's nothing bullish about this. And this is why, when you watch my streams, it is just terrible. BTC 3-day 50 MMA and 200 MMA looks like a death cross about to happen. Yeah, probably. I don't use the 3-day charts, but you could potentially be getting a death cross on there too as well. My go-to is just daily, weekly, monthly. I don't even do the 3 months. I do look at the yearly sometimes, but these are bigger time frames. And I try to stay away from, these lower time frames because, I'm just not day trading. I may go down to the 1 hour if I'm looking for a breakdown. But most of the time, I'm only interested in daily, weekly, and monthly. My monthly is my go-to. I start from there and then I'll work my way down. Chad, just give me a second, man. Let me grab something to drink. All right. Yeah, so that is Bitcoin for you guys. I do want to talk about I do want to talk about. Let me talk about MicroStrategy for a minute. So, we know MicroStrategy is in the long-term bear market, guys, and it is right now retesting major monthly support. So I'm looking at this $100 support. Basically, just look at this entire range right here. So, look, my belief is that MicroStrategy is due for a really big relief rally. Like we are due for a major one. It's been a straight line, since you go from 450 dollars down to $100. Like this is a straight line, guys. So of course not sustainable. Things aren't meant to trade like this. So if I'm looking at MicroStrategy right here, there's a couple of things that I'm actually watching. So I'm looking at the low, our most recent low that was put in of $104, and I'm down on the lower time. I am looking at how this is developing on the 1 hour. So very big bounce, a nice pullback right here, another bounce right here. I want to see what this pullback do. I am going to become bullish in the short term if MicroStrategy can break above, let's call it 140. If we can get above 140, I think we have a very good chance of going back and revisit this $190 target. All right. If we can go above 140, I think we have a very good chance of going back and revisiting $190. Now, my invalidation is $104. So price needs to stay above 104. Even if we do get a pullback like this, to me, I'm perfectly fine with it. As long as we get a pullback, all right, and then we go up, and then we break above 140, then I think we have a very good chance of pushing all the way up to, $190. But as of right now, I don't really have an opinion because, I just don't have the data. This is it's really a waiting game. This is what I'm trying to, get out there. That a bunch of these stuff, there's really not much to analyze because we just don't have new data. All right. The breakdown was analyzed. Like the work was done way back here. If you look at this breakdown right here, guys, if you look at this move to $104, like the work was done back here during this consolidation. The moment we lost 150, like that was your confirmation that we were going lower. So I'm looking at this right now and, I'm just waiting for more data. Probably it's going to take a couple of weeks and we'll see how this all plays out. But remember, even if we go back to $190, it doesn't change anything because, this monthly time frame, man, this thing looks really bad. If I'm looking at this monthly MACD, once again, guys, I'm expecting a full retracement. We are almost there, actually. Like, I'm expecting this thing to retrace all the way down here. All right? If I'm looking at the RSI, if I'm looking at the monthly RSI, guys, I'm expecting a consolidation like this. All right? Monthly RSI, we are right now retesting, the lows of that 2022 bear market. But I don't think this is a buy signal. I think we are going to wait for some sort of a consolidation. And here is where you want to build your position. All right. But the uptrend is not going to be confirmed until we break above the 50 line. So if you think about the last bull market, you don't confirm the uptrend until monthly RSI broke above the 50 line, which was sometimes around May of 2023. So if you go to May of 2023, this is the breakout right here, guys. May of 2023, price breaks above $28. All right. So around 33, that would have been the best time to buy MicroStrategy. But if you wanted to buy the lows, you would have had to accumulate this consolidation right here. This was the low right here, guys. But if you wanted to buy the breakout, the long-term breakout, you would have had to wait until price was above $30. So in the last bull market, that was basically buying around $300. You know what's funny, chat? I gave a buy signal in real time, man. When we broke above $300, I was right here. and I gave a buy signal. Let me show you. And I was actually predicting the $5,000 because remember, in the last bull market, this is pre-split. Let me show you guys, man. Talk about predictions. Chat, it's right here. Look, September 2025. We were breaking out long term. Look at, man, I'm giving some buy signals. All right, I'm giving some buy signals right here, guys. Look at this. From 400 and something down to, I was giving, the accumulation range around 325, 350. All right, I was literally giving the long-term accumulation range. This was August of 2023. All right, this was August of 2023. So what I'm saying to you guys, once again, and look, I pulled these things out not to say I was right. It's just to say, guys, like I've been here and I've seen it all. Like I've seen how this stuff tends to play out. So during this consolidation right here, like this is not bullish. Yes, the price is lower, but you are still in a long-term downtrend. And if you don't be careful, it's a lot of easier looking back and say, I wish I would have bought at $150. Remember, this is $150 pre-split, so that would be $15 in today's price. So it's a lot of easier when you look back and you say, wow, around $15. Yeah, I wish I would have bought MSTR. But guys, the truth is, when you are 15, there's always a risk of going all the way down to 9. There's always a risk of going all the way down. Remember, this is a stock that crashed around 90-something% in the 2000 bubble, guys. And they never recover until the bought Bitcoin. All right, we literally just hit a new all-time highs in 2025. All right, after how many years, guys? After 25 years. All right, look, this entire pump right here, guys, this is because of the result of Bitcoin. If Michael Saylor doesn't buy Bitcoin, the stock is probably around $100 right now. Or pre-split, that would be, $100. But right now, you're basically talking about a $10 stock. Because when you go from 2002, around 89 cents, all right, and actually, if you look at how the stock traded for like almost 10 years, guys. This is 2017. All right, 4 years. From 2017 until 2020, until they bought Bitcoin, the stock was trading sideways between $11 and $15. So this is not a stock that you wanted to buy, around 15, during the bottom of the bear market. Waiting for a breakout is always the right thing to do. Yes, you buy higher, but guys, that's the point of being a trend follower. You're not here to time the bottom. You're not here to time the top. What you're trying to do is you are trying to get in early in an uptrend. So if I'm looking at strategy right now, what I would say to you guys is at least wait until, monthly RSI starts to consolidate. Wait until the drop is over. Right now it's still in a decline. Wait until you get a bounce. Wait until you get some sort of a pullback. Wait until you see some higher highs, some higher lows on the RSI. Or wait until the RSI breaks above the 50. Because otherwise, you're going to be a bag holder. Like, what if things change? What if we never see, strategy back to, any of these levels? Like, what if Bitcoin stays flat for, I don't know, the next 10 years? Remember, Bitcoin just experienced, a 16-year bull market. What if we go into a 5-year bear market? What if we go into a 10-year bear market? Do you want to hold a position for 10 years? I don't think so. So you got to be patient, right? You got to forget about the influencers. These guys that are pushing, like I saw this guy pushing Solana. There's a guy out there on X. He's looking at Solana and he's looking at the RSI, and he goes, lowest RSI since the last bear market. Yeah, sure, lowest RSI since the last bear market, but this is not a buy signal. All right, all the RSI is doing is just, oh my gosh, guys, all the RSI is doing is a continuation of this pullback. All right, I don't see a sign of a bottom on the RSI. Once we start to go sideways like this, all right, go ahead and build a position. But remember, look at how long we went sideways, guys. This is from June of 2022 until August of 2023. Like, that's an entire year of just going sideways. Do you really want to lock up your capital for, 12 months? I don't think so. I don't think any of you guys want to do that. And remember, June of 2022, price of Solana is around $25. Where was the bottom? $8. So be careful out there, guys. Be careful. Let's talk about Iron. So Iron is up a bit today. It's up about $2. But I'm still with the belief that the top is already in. And I don't care what happens in the short term. I think Iron is going lower. My reason, you look at the monthly MACD, maybe I should have been more patient, but look, I think it's over. You look at monthly MACD, I'm looking at this from a momentum, indicator. Look, to me, the momentum is dying. It's a slowdown. There's a decrease in the momentum. So I think we are more likely to continue to see this. And also, you look at RSI. RSI is currently pulling back. As of right now, of course, still in the bull market territory. Once we go below the 50 line, I think that is when, really it's going to be over. But to me, my main concern is that, after this weekly pullback, we had this rally and we ended up with a lower high on the weekly. So to me, unless we break above $63, I really, really don't think there's a reason to be bullish. On the daily, what am I looking at? On the daily, I'm basically looking at the same 63 because, this is a major, major target. If you break above 63, more likely we're going back into the 70s and potentially new all-time highs. But, in terms of when do we accelerate to the downside? I think once we lose $33. So I'm looking at Iron right now, and I think, all right, let's see how this all unfolds. Let's see how this all plays out over the next, couple weeks, and then we'll see where we go from there. The other thing too that I'm not gonna lie though, the price is still above the 200 moving average, so that is a positive. But I think we're going to lose at 200. When I go to the 4 hour, I think we have already lost it. Yeah, the 4 hour time, we have already lost it. And in the short term, actually, look, $47, I think that is a major, in terms of resistance, I think that is a major, major level. So if we can break above 47, I think I'm going to be in a place where, and the reason I'm saying this, guys, I have puts. I have Iron puts, so I'm expecting price to go lower. Not a big position. If I lose it all, perfectly fine. But anyways, if we can break above 47 on the 4 hour, I think that could trigger a move back to around $60. But as long as we are below the, the 200 moving average on the 4 hour, as long as we are below, as long as the structure is actually bearish, lower highs, lower lows, I'm very confident. Yes, we were able to find support right here around $39. But let's see how long we stick around here. If we go down to the 1 hour, the 1 hour is also another reason why I am very confident. The 1 hour, we lost the 200 EMA. We have a consolidation below the 200 EMA. So I do think in the short term, this is a bearish consolidation. All right. Once we lose, $40, $39, then you're looking at a drop to 33. So I'm looking at this in the short term. All right, if we can break above 47, once again, probably we go back to, I'm looking at 55, back to 60. All right, but, being below the 200 moving average on the 1 hour and on the 4 hours, gives me great hope, to be very honest with you guys. So I'm looking at Iron, and I think it's over. All right. And then when you go to the weekly, remember, I don't care what's going on to the daily. When you go to the weekly MACD, man, to me, oh, this looks really, really bad. All right. And I'm expecting a continuation of this pullback. Remember, you want to take the weekly MACD over or the weekly time frame over the daily. All right. The daily is trying to be bullish, but the weekly still looks very bearish. So I'm looking at this weekly right here. In terms of, the momentum, I don't like this. All right. Despite being up about $2 today, nothing has changed on the weekly. All right. And we got a couple more days left in this week, of course. Who knows? Do we close red? Do we close green? If you look at the Heikin Ashi candles, guys, look. The candles are actually red. All right. This is red right here. So I think we're more likely to continue on like this. What else? Robinhood. We talked about Robinhood not today, a couple of days ago. Robinhood's still very bearish to me. I'm looking at this. Monthly, nothing has changed, guys. You don't want to be bullish on anything that's trading below, the 10 monthly moving average. I guess the only question I have when it comes to Robinhood, like, do we bottom somewhere around here? Because, look, this is the 50% crash, man. Like, how much more do we go until the bottom is actually in? If I'm looking at some of my indicators, the MACD could potentially go bearish very soon. If this RSI was to lose the 50 line, that could be some really, really bad news for Robinhood. The weekly, of course, looks very bearish. The daily, of course, looks interesting though. All right, I am seeing bullish divergences on the daily, so I want you guys to take a look at this. As price has been going down, RSI has been trending up. I don't have bullish divergences on the MACD, which is perfectly fine. But I want to see how this, plays out. I don't like the fact that price is below, the 200 daily moving average. That is not good. But yeah, let's see how this all plays out. Robinhood is not looking good in the short term. Let's see how it all plays out. All right. The equity market is actually green today. All right, chat. Listen, man. Appreciate you guys. We just did about 15 minutes. As I say, I do not have a lot of time today. Wanted to give you guys a quick update on BTC. And then, we spoke about some stuff as well. We'll do another stream tomorrow. And but I'll be honest though, unless I come up with something very creative to kind of focus on, there's not much to analyze, because we have already done that. We need more data. We need more data on these charts. We are basically looking at the same data from the last couple of days. I think we need, a couple of weeks needs to pass by. We need to get more data, and then, that should provide new information on this market. But anyways, appreciate you guys. Have a great